Honorable President, and guests. It gives me a great pleasure to introduce to you the Infosys Prize winner of 2015 Life Sciences, Dr. Amit Sharma, who is head of the Structural and Computational Biology Group at International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology, New Delhi, for his pioneering contributions towards deciphering the molecular structure at the atomic level of key proteins involved in the biology of pathogenesis of malarial parasite. About 500 million people, something like 50 crores, on this planet will succumb to the infection of the malarial parasite. Of these, about 500,000 will actually die of this disease. In India itself, about 1 crore to 1.5 crore people will have also infection from malaria, and several 100,000 will succumb to the disease. Though 90% of the disease in sub-Saharan deserts, it really has a consequence in large part of the world. Children die very young of this particular parasite infection, and it has a very heavy burden on the society, and not only to mention the economics. In some parts of the world, 30% of their GDP is spent in dealing with this disease. Now, this disease is caused by a small parasite which gorges on the blood. And over the centuries, many, many remedies have been discussed. Several times you read in the paper vaccines have been made, but unfortunately none of them have really stood the test of time. Similarly, lots of drugs have been against the malaria, but none of them actually survive for a long time because the parasite is very clever and eventually becomes resistant to the drugs. To the point that one of the very well-known drugs, artemisinin, for which a Nobel Prize awarded last year, also has now begun to show resistance. So what our laureate, Dr. Sharma, began to discuss with his colleagues is the idea that how does this parasite actually grows? It commands the machinery of the cell and then uses it to grow, but it also needs some of its own machinery. And that's what he said, that this is the Achilles heel of this parasite. If we knew the proteins or the genes that are involved in that particular growth of the parasite, then he can go after them without worrying about the rest of the proteins. Now, the idea is simple, but here is the problem. There are 100,000 proteins in each of our cells. And he wants to identify the 30 or so among those 100,000. That is really, truly a needle in a haystack. He managed to do that with his colleagues, and then he wanted to find out how is the structure of this protein different from other proteins that you could actually target a small molecule or an inhibitor that will selectively only destroy this protein without affecting the rest of the body, so no toxicity. This is, again, a very tough task because the protein that he's working on has 1/1000th of the size of a needle, essentially. So he purified it, identified it, and then bombarded it with X-rays to look at the structure of this protein at the atomic level. So he knows where are the nooks and the corners and the holes, so he can fit in a particular specific inhibitor. So this is really quite a remarkable task, and they have managed to begin to do this. And many of us are quite excited that this will eventually lead to some very important molecule, because then you can have multiple attacks on the parasite. So even if it reverts, its resistance will be much less to that. His work is so interesting and important that the jury consulted some experts in malaria, and one of the leading experts in the world said, here is I quote, "Dr. Sharma is a splendid example of someone working at the frontiers of basic sciences, solving major medical problems in infectious disease." Dr. Sharma also has been involved in helping and supporting many young scientists in India to do what we call the three-dimensional structure of the protein. So he has been a wonderful community leader. Finally, on a personal note, I have seen Dr. Sharma grow from a young graduate student to a postdoc to now become a world leader in the fields. So it's given me a very special pleasure to congratulate Amit and his family for the recipient of 2015 Life Sciences Prize. Congratulations.
Thank you. Here is a video of Dr. Sharma pitting man versus mosquito.
I have impossible expectations all the time of just about everything that I do, not related to science alone. So the excitement of coming up with hypotheses and whether it turns out to be true or not in the end, but the journey is really a lot more fun if you're that much more intensely charged up about chasing an impossible dream. Every once in a while when we have success, it sort of validates our dreams, and so yes, impossible dreams are good ones.
Please join me in welcoming on stage Dr. Amit Sharma. May I request Mr. R. Seshasai to join us for the presentation. I request the Honorable President to present the Infosys Prize in Life Sciences to Dr. Amit Sharma. Thank you. Dr. Sharma, would you like to say a few words, please?
So I'd like to thank the President and the Infosys Foundation for this great opportunity and for this recognition. I'd like to thank my staff who have been working tirelessly in the laboratory and chasing the dreams and ideas we have in the lab. And I'd like to thank my family, especially my parents. I dedicate this award to my late father. And finally, I'd like to thank my wife, Devyani, and Ankur and Anant, who've been supporting me in this dream for more than a decade. So thank you very much.